The rain had been falling since morning, washing the streets in silver streaks that glittered under the weak afternoon light. Inside the schoolyard, puddles rippled beneath the hurried footsteps of children racing to the cafeteria. Laughter, chatter, and the squeak of wet shoes echoed against the old brick walls. At the far end of the yard, beneath a leafless tree, sat a boy. His uniform was slightly torn at the hem, his shoes worn thin, and in his hands rested a plastic lunchbox, empty. He opened it, closed it, opened it again as though wishing food might magically appear if he stared long enough. His shoulders trembled, though whether from the cold or hunger, no one could tell. Across the yard, a girl named Emily noticed him. She was small for her 12 years, with curious eyes that often looked for stories where others saw nothing. Today, those eyes could not look away. Her friends tugged at her sleeve, laughing, calling her to join their circle, but Emily's gaze was fixed on the boy, who sat alone as though invisible to the world. Her heart raced. She opened her own lunchbox, sandwiches, apple slices, a small chocolate bar. She thought of her mother's words that morning. "Eat well, sweetheart. You'll need your energy." But how could she, knowing someone else had nothing? With quiet determination, she walked over. The boy looked up, startled. She slid her lunchbox across the bench. "Here," she whispered, almost shy. "Take mine." The boy's eyes widened. I can't." "Yes, you can," Emily insisted, her voice firmer now. "You're hungry." His fingers trembled as he took a sandwich. He bit into it slowly, as though afraid it would vanish. For the first time that day, a small smile touched his face. But kindness, it seemed, would not go unnoticed. "Emily." The voice was sharp, cutting through the rain-soaked air like a blade. Standing by the cafeteria doors was their teacher, Mrs. Turner, her arms folded tightly across her chest. Her heels clicked like thunder as she marched forward. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded, her voice loud enough to draw stares from nearby students. Emily froze. The boy lowered his head, sandwich still in his hand. I was just sharing my lunch," Emily stammered. Mrs. Turner's eyes hardened. "Sharing food during school hours is against policy. It's unsanitary, it's unsafe, and it's strictly forbidden. You know the rules." "But he was hungry," Emily whispered. "That is not your concern," the teacher snapped. "You will report to detention after school, and I will be calling your parents." Gasps rippled through the crowd of students gathering nearby. Whispers began to spread like wildfire. Emily felt her cheeks burn, her stomach twist. The boy, Daniel, set the sandwich down, shame written across his face. "I'm sorry," he murmured, his voice barely audible. Emily wanted to scream that he had nothing to be sorry for, but her throat ached too much to speak. The rest of the day dragged like a punishment in itself. Emily sat through classes with her head bowed, classmates throwing sidelong glances, some sympathetic, others mocking. When the final bell rang, she reported to detention as ordered. She scrubbed chalk dust from the boards, stacked chairs, and swept floors long after the others had gone home. That evening, her parents sat across from her at the dinner table, disappointment in their eyes. "Emily," her mother sighed, "why do you always get yourself into trouble? Don't you understand how this looks?" Her father shook his head. "We work hard to give you a good education, and this is what we hear? That you're breaking rules?" Emily clenched her fists. "He didn't have any food. I couldn't just sit there and eat while he had nothing." "Sometimes," her mother replied sharply, "minding your own business is better than standing out for the wrong reasons." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. She pushed her plate away, appetite gone. "Maybe kindness is never the wrong reason," she whispered. That night, she lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Outside, the rain tapped gently on the window. In her heart, she wondered if she had truly done something wrong, or if the world simply punished kindness when it became inconvenient. Across town, in a small, dimly lit apartment, Daniel sat at a wooden table with his younger sister. Their mother placed half a slice of bread on each plate, apologizing with her eyes, though her lips said nothing. The cupboards were nearly bare, the rent overdue, and yet she forced a smile for her children. Daniel chewed slowly, thinking of the sandwich Emily had given him earlier. For the first time in days, he had felt full. if only for a moment. The next morning, Emily walked to school with heavy steps. At the gate, she found Daniel waiting. He held out a wrinkled piece of paper. "What's this?" Emily asked softly. "It's from my mom," Daniel said. "She said to thank you. She said you're braver than most adults." Emily unfolded the note. In shaky handwriting, it read, "Your kindness fed more than his hunger." It gave him hope. A small smile tugged at Emily's lips, though fear still lingered in her chest. Unbeknownst to them, a parent standing nearby had overheard the exchange. A mother whose child was in Emily's class, her expression shifting from curiosity to outrage. She leaned toward another parent, whispering, "Did you hear? She was punished for feeding a hungry child." By afternoon, whispers had turned into conversations, conversations into debates. At the Parent-Teacher Association meeting that week, the issue erupted like a storm. "Is it true?" one father demanded. "A girl was punished for sharing her lunch?" The principal adjusted his glasses nervously. "Our rules are in place for safety and order. We cannot allow students to break them." "Safety?" a mother snapped. "And what about compassion? Are we teaching our children to ignore those in need because a rulebook says so?" Murmurs of agreement filled the room. The principal tried to regain control, but the tide had shifted. Parents raised their voices, questioning not only the punishment but the very values the school was instilling in their children. The following week, the entire school was summoned to the assembly hall. Students sat cross-legged on the polished floor, parents filled the back rows, and teachers lined the walls. The atmosphere was tense, expectant. On stage, the principal cleared his throat. "We are here to address recent concerns regarding school policy," he began. His voice was firm, but there was unease beneath it. "While discipline is necessary, we must also recognize the importance of compassion." Before he could continue, a father stood up. His voice trembled, but his words were clear. "If rules silence kindness, then the rules themselves are wrong. My daughter will not grow up in a school where helping the hungry is treated as a crime." Applause erupted. Parents stood, clapping, voices rising in agreement. Even some teachers shifted uncomfortably, as though realizing the fragility of their stance. Daniel sat near the front with his mother. Tears glistened in her eyes as she squeezed his hand. For the first time in years, she felt seen, her son's struggle no longer hidden in the shadows. Emily, sitting a few rows away, felt her heart swell. She had never wanted recognition, only fairness. And now, as the voices of adults rose in defense of what was right, she realized her small act of kindness had grown into something much larger. By the end of the meeting, the decision was unanimous. Emily's punishment was lifted. But more than that, a new program was born, a shared lunch initiative funded by parents and supported by the school board. No child would ever sit hungry again. Weeks later, the cafeteria was alive with new energy. Long tables brimmed with food, fresh fruit, sandwiches, warm meals, brought not just by the school but by families who contributed to the program. Children who once ate in silence now laughed, traded snacks, and shared freely. At one table, Emily and Daniel sat side by side, splitting an apple between them. "Guess we broke the rules," Daniel said with a grin. Emily laughed softly. "No, we changed them." Sunlight streamed through the tall cafeteria windows, casting a golden glow across the children's faces. The room buzzed with joy, with unity, with something more powerful than rules: compassion. Months later, people still spoke of that day. Parents recalled how one girl's punishment had shaken them into action. Teachers admitted they had learned as much from their students as their students ever learned from them. And Emily? She carried the lesson quietly in her heart. That kindness may face resistance, but it never fades. On the last day of the school year, Daniel handed her a small drawing. It was of two children sharing a lunchbox beneath a tree. Above them, he had written in bold, uneven letters, "Kindness wins." Emily held the drawing close, her eyes glistening. She looked out across the playground where children played freely, laughter echoing, and felt something settle in her chest. Not pride, not victory, just peace. Because sometimes, the smallest act of kindness, the sharing of a sandwich, the defiance of an unfair rule, is powerful enough to change the rules of the world. And it all began with one young girl who chose compassion over silence. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of compassion. And tell us in the comments, why do you believe kindness still matters today?